Ready? Good evening. I'd like to call the Cumberland School Committee meeting to order at 7:40 and ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. Demotico. Do I have a second by Mrs. Teal? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0 with Mr. Fiorello absent this evening. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I believe the school police report, is not in the agenda? It's either that or the truancy report. Hold on. Pardon? The police report. Thank you. So we will remove that from the consent agenda. What we have is the approval of minutes from the regular meeting from 9:24, the special meeting 9:30, executive session 9:24, executive session 9:30, enrollment report and residency truancy report. Pleasure of the committee on the consent agenda. Motion by Mrs. Teal, second by Mr. Salvatore. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And the motion carries 6-0. Next item is report out of executive session meeting on 10/8. There were no votes taken. I need a vote to seal the minutes of the executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Salvatore. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Duffy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is recognitions. Dr. Thornton.
I will defer to the incoming superintendent, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Dr. Thornton, Madam Chair. We would like to recognize Kristen Jans this evening. Kristen, if you can please come on up and stand over here with the superintendent. And I'd like to share something with all of you. Kristen has been chosen as one of the Rhode Island state-level finalists in the 2015 Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. She was selected from a field of outstanding candidates for this prestigious award. State winners are being reviewed by a national selection committee. The White House will announce the results of this national selection process. The timing of the announcement depends largely on the White House schedule, but should occur in the spring of 2016. State-level finalists in both mathematics and science will be invited to a number of events in recognition of Kristen's selection, including a formal dinner in her honor. Congratulations on this impressive achievement, Kristen.
Nicely done. We always like those math awards.
Yeah, what's that? Now, the next award was for the Rhode Island High School Principal of the Year Award, and this was actually on the last agenda, and Alan had open house and could not be here, but he has subsequently, as you all know, been selected as the National High School Principal of the Year. And he was going to be here with us this evening, but he's actually coaching his soccer team, and texted me and said, would it be okay if I stay with my team? And I had a conversation with Dr. Thornton, and we're in agreement that it's great that he wants to stay with his team, and they are winning. It's tied 1-1. So,
If he loses, he has to cussle on up here.
well, it is pretty impressive, though, that he and Adolfo Costa, one of his assistants, they both have volunteered to coach the high school soccer team. I think that's a pretty impressive thing for him to do, and on top of his already incredibly busy schedule for both he and Adolfo to take on that responsibility is commendable, to say the least. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Agreed. Well, congratulations to Mr. Tenrero. What an achievement. We're all enjoying it. And school vaccine, flu vaccine clinics?
Madam Chair, there are several clinics planned over the next couple of months. In fact, the first flu clinic was this afternoon in the high school from 4 to 6:30. There is a schedule available for, I believe it's for teachers and their families over the next several weeks. And I know that Cindy Shabbat has generated a flyer for this, and I know that there is one additional clinic planned for November 17th, so we'll make sure that we get that information out on the website so that everyone knows that they have an opportunity to get a flu shot. Alex Prignano and I were actually going to get a shot today, but our meetings interfered with our plan.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Chairperson's Report, School-Town Collaboration. We will initiate those meetings early in November. We had a little scheduling conflict, so those meetings will start then, second Tuesday in November. And like we said at the last meeting, Mr. Duffy will be chairing that committee. And just as an aside, also wanted to add my appreciation for the organization around the National Principal of the Year Award. It was very well done, very well organized. Appreciate all the communications that went out. And the event itself was terrific. It was really wonderful. So kudos to the team. Next item on the agenda is report of standing committees, payment of bills. Mr. DeModica.
Madam Chair, the Finance Subcommittee did meet tonight, and we went over the vouchers. And on a 2-0 vote, we approved the payment of $1,838,194.27, and I would move passage of payment of the bills.
Mr. DeModica moves passage of the payment of bills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda, we did not have Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update. We did not have Achievement and Communications Subcommittee update.
Madam Chair, we do fiscal.
What did I miss? Oh, fiscal. I miss one thing every time.
Madam Chair, we did meet tonight. Mr. Prignano gave us an update in regards to the end-of-year report. The auditors are coming in next week. And the biggest item was we did have Durham School Services in to talk about the bus routes, about how many kids are on the buses and missed routes, et cetera. And Durham will be updating the routes by the end of the month. And if anyone out there needs a job, Durham is looking for bus drivers as well. The biggest problem we have is their staff calling in sick. They've got administrators out there driving buses. They're actually giving overtime to BVP bus drivers, which is a separate contract, to help manage the loads here right now. So they're actively seeking additional bus drivers to fill this in. And we'll have another report from them within 2 weeks in regards to what the bus loads are for each route.
Do we have the same number of buses this year as we did last year?
Yes, we do.
Did we have this issue last year?
I am not sure, well, this
Not that
never
we're
came to
aware.
our attention, right. What we have, part of the problem is we have kids that are assigned to one bus that going on a different bus, and that's creating havoc. We have sports equipment, music equipment, all coming on the buses now, and they can have up to 71 kids on a bus, but in the middle school, they're keeping it in the low 50s. But when you add all the extra stuff in there, and then people calling in sick, they're overloading the buses, and we did have an issue with one child refused entry onto a bus because the bus had reached the limit of 71 kids. So we are working to resolve that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll cross that off. Next item on the agenda is comments from the public. Anyone here who wishes to speak this evening?
Madam Chair, I just have one quick thing before Mr. Mutter speaks, just so that the committee knows, we now have a live feed for our meeting. We are broadcasting
Madam
live.
Chair, and
Oh.
members of the committee, I was just wondering if the incoming superintendent is going to continue the BEP discussion? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Wow. I didn't even get anything out of that. I was like, I'm here
Turn my
to,
hearing aid up.
what was that?
I'll turn my hearing aid up.
Yeah, the BEP. I heard through the grapevine that it was Dr. Thornton's last meeting, so I'm here to thank Dr. Thornton for all his work in town and to wish him good luck in his new venture. And so as I was thinking about a couple things, it was interesting that the superintendent we would select would talk to us about getting the right people on the bus. And, you know, a few months prior to that, we would have just taken the bus actually showing up at the right bus stop, you know, and picking up the right kids. So it was interesting that you would be our selection. But I think the most important thing is that you allowed us to talk about things, the important things and things that matter right from the get-go. It was full day K. It was the redistricting, which had taken many attempts in the town and had not been accomplished. Whether it was the science curriculum that changed, start times, grading policies, instead of the, which too often the retail politics that the town boards get mired in. We were finally talking about stuff that, you know, made a big difference. And I know you don't always take the, you know, full credit for that, but you certainly were putting the right people on the bus, and we were making some good things happen here. So good luck in Warwick, and I also while I'm here, want to congratulate the school committee and Mr. Mitchell, the committee for the selection, and Mr. Mitchell for okay, and I know we're going to do well with Mr. Mitchell, so thank you.
Is a clap? We don't,
I came here with a present. He didn't have a present. I came on to represent many different people and to say thank you, Dr. Thornton. I was thinking about what I wanted to say on my ride up from Malden, where we have a new district now that we were licensed for today. And I was thinking about, I wear many different hats, and the hat as a parent, so I thank you on behalf of my children and the opportunities they're going to have. And I thank you on behalf of AlphaBest and the AlphaBest kids. We have 250 students in our schools now who are doing drama and who are doing foreign language and technology, all this stuff in after school. The opportunities they didn't have before you came along, and you had faith in this small company to come in, and then I had the luxury, and I'm so grateful to have we'll be working for them now. So I remember not about the busing, but about when you talked about good to great. And I keep thinking of that now with my own employees and getting the right people in the right seats on the bus. And I use it all the time. I thank you for all the advice you've given me over the last several years as a friend now, and I'm going to miss you. So I bought you this to remember it. Good to great Cumberland bus. You turn it on and it's electronic.
Seat 71.
71. Does it have a driver?
That's awesome.
Madam Chair, may I just add a few things?
You bet.
Okay, first of all, last Wednesday when I was appointed by the school committee, I had a few things to say about Dr. Thornton, and I've been in education for 32 years and worked in 4 different school districts and have worked with and for a lot of people. And, I can honestly say that, Phil is by far the kindest and most supportive supervisor that I've ever had. So, I mean, and to even use the term supervisor, I don't think fully explains how supportive and what kind of a leader he's been. So, thank you, Phil, for all your support. I'm grateful for the many conversations, your mentoring on some really important issues. I've learned a lot from you, and I really do believe we know that you have some challenges ahead of you. But in all seriousness, I mean, you're the perfect person, I think, to take on that responsibility, and we all know that that you're going to have the same impact on Warwick that you've had on the Cumberland School District. So we wish you well, and most of all, thank you for everything that you've done for me and for the district. I just wanted to say one other thing, if I may. Madam Chair, I just wanted to piggyback on your comments about Monday. And it was a wonderful day for Cumberland, certainly a wonderful day for Alan and his school and the town, his being selected as the high school principal of the National High School Principal of the Year, which is an amazing accomplishment, never happened before in the state of Rhode Island. And what people, I think what people don't understand is that, you know, we had known for a month or so that he was the person who had been chosen, and we had to keep that a secret, which is not an easy thing to do. And I think one of the major challenges is like trying to keep, make that a surprise when so many people had to be involved in making Monday a reality. So we had several meetings over the course of the month leading up to Monday, and I just, two things I think. There were a lot of people involved in the process. Adolfo Costa and Jesse Butash, Cindy Shabbat played a key role in helping us. Dr. Thornton and I talked to the police because we knew that there was going to be some coordination, and so there were a lot of moving parts. And I'm missing a lot of people here, by the way, who played a role. But I think there are two key people, whose organizational impact really played a key role in making everything on Monday just happen so smoothly. And one is Justin, our communications person, who really, was the point person in contacting all the dignitaries and organizing the brochure, and just an amazing amount of work that he and his staff did in helping us prepare for Monday. Behind the scenes, amazing job that he did. And then the other person who I think never really gets enough credit, Mike Chandler. Mike's the kind of, God forbid if anything went wrong, then we would know, that Mike was involved. But it was and he had a key role in this because he's the one that had to coordinate the phone call from Secretary Duncan, had to make sure that everything was, clicking on all cylinders, whatever, technological things he had to do to make sure that we could hear the secretary clearly, and so that everyone in the auditorium could hear that clearly. And, he had arranged for all of the classrooms in the building to be a part of this celebration because not everyone could fit in the auditorium. So, I just, Mike, I think, is one of those behind-the-scenes guys who was critical to the operation in this district, and I just think that, he deserves some recognition for the tremendous amount of time and effort. People have no idea, 3 or 4 full days of his time that he had to, be involved to make that flawless celebration happen on Monday. So I just wanted to recognize, all of the people who put a lot of time and effort into really making that day a flawless production, really. So thank you guys. Mike, thank you. Justin, thank you.
I just want to thank you all for these last 4 years, and this is really a nice symbolic present. I think of Cumberland. When I think of this, I think of Mr. Mutter when I first came in, shaking Jeff's hand, taking on this job. Certainly the Cumberland bus back then probably had some problems, maybe your front end alignment, ball joint, struts, transmission, a few other things maybe. But, a great team, I think, a great school committee. Mike Chandler, Tina, Alex, the principals, Bob, a tireless group of people that really were single-minded in purpose. So really, it was a pleasure to do this with all of you. And it's not always easy work, and you oftentimes get criticized for what you do. And I think it takes a lot of just tenacity to keep moving forward every year, knowing what you have to do. So once again, thank you.
Yeah, the telephone at the event was pretty awesome. And there was a time when the phone rang and it was a wrong number.
That wasn't Mike's fault, by the way.
It was so funny. We all stopped and looked at the phone, and then we were all peeking over trying to figure out, did we disconnect him? Mr. DeMonica.
Just on that note, I did bring my camera. I did take, I think it was about 50 pictures, and I put them up on our Google Drive right at the very beginning, Alan's photos. So members want to see the photos I took, they're there.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, so we have a public hearing here. We have reading of policies. I believe the amended policies we will take no action on this evening. I think the new policy, second reading, we will have the second reading of it. And then the first reading for the gift policy in J23, there was no action taken.
No action.
Correct. Okay, so, perfect. Okay. So we will table the amended policies and the new policy first reading from the reading of policies. So I need a motion to table. Motion by Mrs. Teal, second by Mr. Salvatore and Mr. Denon. Got to be faster. All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0. So what we have here is the new policy, second reading, J22 administration of naloxone or Narcan. And what I would expect if Mr. Fiorello was here, he would ask that it be read into the record. And does anyone wish to speak for or against policy J22? Okay, hearing none, we will call the public hearing closed and move on to new business. Okay, this one is discussion and or vote to approve resolution SCR 2000, did I skip something, Mrs. Teal? Oh, I thought I did. Okay, I did. We're not there yet. We're in item A. I usually go in order, and then I just skip things in between. All right, so it's a SCR 2015-11, Resolution of Recognition. So this resolution was initiated by Mr. Fiorello, who had a family matter and could not be here this evening. And he had a suggestion the other day, which I thought was a really terrific idea, so we memorialized it in a resolution. It's a resolution to transmit to the school committee in the city of Warwick, recognizing Superintendent Phil Thornton for his leadership during his tenure as superintendent of schools for the Cumberland School Department. Now, we have a summary. I don't know if anyone wants to read part of it or not. I'm happy. Oh, all right. Too bad. Okay. So the summary states, whereas Phil Thornton is recognized as superintendent of Cumberland School District from 2011 to 2015. I thought that was very thoughtful. And whereas Dr. Thornton has demonstrated a relentless commitment to the advancement and improvement of student achievement, and whereas Dr. Thornton is truly an outstanding leader dedicated to the highest standards of professionalism, and whereas Dr. Thornton is willing to challenge the status quo in order to implement academic improvements in alignment with best educational practices, and whereas Dr. Thornton's leadership has raised expectations for Cumberland School District's administration, teachers, and students, resulting in an attitude for success within the district and community at large. And whereas Dr. Thornton has created an academic environment founded on research, trust, respect, fairness, and transparency. And whereas Dr. Thornton has assembled a strong and talented leadership team who are well positioned to continue and expand upon his initiatives, and therefore be it further resolved that by the action of the school committee of the Cumberland School Department, that this resolution bestows a vote of confidence in Dr. Thornton's qualifications and abilities to exceed the expectations of the Warwick School Department and community. This resolution shall become effective upon its adoption. Pleasure of the committee on the resolution that is before us.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve it
Second.
Mr.
unanimously.
DeMonica, I hope it's unanimous. It'd be in big trouble if it wasn't. Second by Mr. Salvatore and Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion is unanimous, 6-0.
I'll just once again thank you. I'm honored. Thank you.
Well, we will transmit this to the chair of the Warwick School Committee tomorrow. Oh, and one last thing. We have a parting gift before I move on. Now, I know this is a highly coveted gift. Yes, and we are presenting this delightful tote bag to you for your lunch. There's a small gift in it. By no means doesn't represent any, don't read too far into it, but we'd like to present that to you. Thank you very much. Oh, yes. Better not see it on eBay.
We got it from your office, though. The box in your office.
All right. Well, enjoy that. All right, next item on the agenda, discussion and/or vote to approve homeschool instruction requests for the 2015-2016 school year.
Recommend approval, Madam Chair.
Pleasure of the committee.
Make a motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Denon, second by Mrs. Teal. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is discussion and/or vote to approve new policies, J22, administration of naloxone, Narcan. All right. Pleasure of the committee on J22.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. Salvatore,
Second.
second by Mrs. Teal and Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0. We will take no action on the first reading of the G15 and J23, so I need a motion to table. Motion by Mr. Demotica and Mrs. Teal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Denon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries 6-0 to table. And then I need the next policies, I-6, J15, and K2 tabled. Thank you, Mrs. Teal. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Duffy. All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is personnel recommendations. Mrs. Fogel.
Thank you. I don't have that many for you. So I'm going to start with resignations. I have a few coaching resignations. So I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Deborah Engels, head girls basketball coach for the Cumberland School Department, effective September 24th of 2015. Hillary Schweitzer, head girls lacrosse coach for the Cumberland School Department, effective September 12th of 2015. And Manuel Vega, head boys soccer coach for the Cumberland School Department, effective September 28th of 2015.
Pleasure of the committee.
Make a motion we accept?
Motion to accept by Mr. Denon. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Teal. Discussion? Mr. Demotica.
Do we have replacements for these? I don't think we have enough administrators.
As I'll indicate to you, the boys soccer coach, obviously those have been filled. We have posted for lacrosse and girls basketball coach, and Matt is working on those now. We do have a few applicants already for both, and he's working on filling those.
Basketball's winter.
Yes. So I think the season, they start late November, I think, but don't quote me on that. I think it starts very beginning of December.
Got it. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0.
I have one more resignation that we have to do for paperwork purposes. So I sadly request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Philip Thornton, superintendent of schools for the Cumberland School Department, effective October 16th of 2015. And before you vote on it, I just want to say I want to thank you for everything that you've done for Cumberland, for my kids, and it's been an honor to work with you.
There's no action.
I always joke about that, like, what are you
What
going to do, not
happens
vote
if?
for them?
Yeah. Okay,
We'll find out.
pleasure of the committee. It's going to be awkward.
Motion to accept.
Motion by Mr. Duffy to accept the resignation. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion, 5-1. Mr. Mr. Demotica dissenting. Alrighty, school
So-
committee, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I have resignation. I'm
Yes.
sorry, retirement. Sorry. Request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Suzanne Brillian, grade 4 teacher at Cumberland Hill Elementary School, which will be effective on June 30th of 2016.
Pleasure of the committee.
Motion we approve, but
Motion by Mr. Demotica, second by Mr. Salvatore. Discussion?
just why so far out, Mrs. Vogel?
She had already made the decision, and she brought it to me, and I said, do you want me to put it on already? And she said, yes, please. I've made my decision, so I figured so I didn't miss it, I'd put it on.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0.
I just have a few appointments. Most of them are. So I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Aldolfo Costa, Stephen Gorman, and Alan Tenrero, all as boys varsity soccer coaches, all effective on September 28th of 2015. My phone's over there. They were winning they were tied 1-1, so I'll see if I can. And I also have the appointment of Linda Diefenbach, library media specialist for the Cumberland School Department. This would be a retroeffective to September 2nd of 2015. She's been working as a long-term sub for us. We wanted to make sure that it worked out. She's a step 1, no lane, 22% teacher.
Pleasure of the committee on the appointments.
Make a motion where they approve the appointments.
Motion by Mr. Demotica. Second by Mr. Denon and Mrs. Teal. Boy, you guys are right in line with one another tonight. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is school committee comments, school liaison report. Comments this evening? Hearing none. Mrs. Teal?
I just want to say again and again and again, thank you, Phil. It's been a real pleasure to work with you. And I think really, I'm going to piggyback on somewhat what Jeff said, that what I've really admired about you is that all the decisions we've made and really the work that we've done, it's all been student-focused. And that is, that's not an easy thing to do sometimes. This can be a very political position. And I certainly have served on this committee for a long time, and I can say at times, not all the time, we're students at the center of all of our decisions. And I think that because we are now so focused on student achievement, that's why this district is becoming so successful. It's a wonderful thing for the students in the community. And I also think you've left us in great hands with Bob, and I think you've got a great administrative team, great principals, and we've got outstanding teachers, and we're well positioned for success in the future. We have one of the best principals in the country, and in my mind, we have two of the best superintendents in the country. And I look forward to seeing what you do at Warwick. I think that's really good for Rhode Island to have another successful school district, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, nice job, Mrs. Teal. All right, last thing. Dr. Thornton, do we have executive session this evening?
No, we do not.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion by Mr. Denon.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salvatore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And we are adjourned at 8:13.